I'm Ella, and here's how everything started going sideways. It used to be just me, my little sister Lily, Mom, and Dad. Life was ordinary, nothing flashy, but it was ours. Dad worked fixing cars, and Mom was a librarian until her friend, Janet, talked her into one of those personal growth workshops. It didn't take long for that to flip everything upside down. I remember the evening it all changed. We were sitting around the dinner table, a mix of laughter and the clinking of dishes filling the room. Dad had just cracked a joke about his day at the shop when Mom dropped her news. "I'm quitting my job at the library," she announced, reaching for the mashed potatoes as if she hadn't just dropped a bombshell. Dad paused, his fork halfway to his mouth. "Quit? Why the hell would you quit now, Karen?" Mom's eyes lit up with that scary kind of excitement. "I met some people at the seminar. They're into stock trading, real estate, all sorts of investments that could make us real money, not just pennies." "You're talking about gambling with our savings, Karen. That seminar's messing with your head," Dad snapped, his voice a mix of worry and anger. "It's not gambling, Tom. It's about taking risks to move forward. You're just too scared to see it," Mom fired back. That's how most dinners went after that seminar. Mom chasing dreams of big bucks, and Dad trying to pull her back to reality. Their arguments got louder, rougher, and nothing like the parents I knew. One day, I came home from school to find Mom at the kitchen table, papers and her laptop spread out like she was plotting a takeover. "Hey, Mom, what's all this?" I asked, dropping my backpack. "It's my future, Elle. I'm done living paycheck to paycheck. It's time we live like the rich," she replied without looking up. "I've invested some money in a promising stock. And tomorrow, I'm meeting with a group about a real estate venture. It's all going to change for us, you'll see." I wanted to believe her, really. But it felt like we were stepping onto a roller coaster without any safety harnesses. And what if it doesn't work out? What happens then? Mom finally looked up, her gaze fierce. "It will work out. I'm making sure of it." Days turned into weeks, and the tension didn't let up. Dad hated the gambling, he called it that no matter what fancy name Mom gave it. I'd hear them at night, their voices raised in another heated debate. "You're throwing away everything we've worked for, Karen. Those schemes are nothing but money pits. And you're just too chicken to seize a real opportunity, Tom. I'm trying to build something bigger here, and I don't need your negativity." Arguments between Mom and Dad were daily events, each more heated than the last. The stakes kept getting higher, and so did the tension. It was like living on a ticking time bomb, waiting for it to blow. One Thursday night, the air in the kitchen was thick enough to cut with a knife. Dad had just discovered Mom pulled a hefty sum from their joint savings account. I was trying to focus on my homework at the dining table, but the rising voices made it impossible. "Karen, where's the money from our savings? It's nearly half gone." Dad's voice boomed from the doorway as he slapped some papers on the table. Mom, who was chopping vegetables, didn't even flinch. "I invested it, Tom. It's going into a fund that promises triple the return. We talked about this." "No, you talked, and I said no. When will you stop this madness?" Dad was red in the face, his hands balled into fists. "It's not madness, it's opportunity. You'd know if you weren't so stubbornly glued to your penny-pinching ways." Mom shot back, her voice icy. I looked over at Lily, who was quietly doodling in her notebook, her small shoulders hunched up to her ears. It broke my heart to see her like this, trying to shut out the storm around her. "Your opportunities are bleeding us dry, Karen. We can't even pay this month's bills on time, because of your investments." Dad's voice cracked with frustration. "And we'll make up for it tenfold when the returns come in. Just wait and see, Tom. Stop being such a pessimist," Mom retorted, slamming the knife down on the counter. Days passed, and the fights continued, each leaving a deeper mark than the last. I found myself dreading coming home after school, lingering at the library or wandering the streets just to avoid the constant tension. I was 2 years shy of graduation when the bomb dropped. It was a Saturday morning that seemed like any other until Dad found the bank statements. The air was thick with tension as he spread them across the kitchen table, his eyes scanning the numbers that made less sense with every glance. "What the hell is this, Karen?" Dad's voice was a mix of disbelief and rage as he looked up at Mom. Mom, who was sipping her coffee, looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. "Tom, I was going to tell you." "Tell me what? That you've gambled away Ella's college fund? Is that your big plan for financial freedom?" Dad threw the bank statement down, pointing at the glaring zero balance. "You've not just gambled with our money, Karen, you've gambled with our daughter's future." I was frozen by the entryway, Lily clutching my hand, both of us wide-eyed. This was worse than any argument before. This was about my life, my college, my escape plan from all this chaos. "This is it, Karen. I'm done. I can't do this anymore." Dad's voice was cold, resigned. Dad turned to me, his eyes filled with a sorrow that knotted my stomach. "I'm sorry, Ella. I tried." Within weeks, Dad was gone. He remarried quickly, moved to another city, and started over. He called at first, his voice always strained, always sorry. But Mom, ever the wounded warrior, blocked his number and painted him as the traitor. "Your father left us, girls. He doesn't care. He's not even paying alimony," Mom told us one evening, her tone bitter as she deleted his contact from my phone. With Dad gone and college now a distant dream, it was down to me to keep our ship from sinking. I picked up a job at the local diner, Benny's, a place where the coffee was bitter but the paycheck steady. Every cent I earned went straight to Mom, supposedly to help dig us out of the hole her gambling had buried us in. But despite handing over my pay, bills were piling up, and Mom was hardly ever home, always off chasing her next big score. One particularly long day had me coming home past midnight. The house was dark, Lily asleep on the sofa with books scattered around her. I gently woke her up to get her to bed, feeling a mix of anger and sorrow that she had to live like this. The next morning, still beat from the double shift, I found Mom at the kitchen table, scribbling in a notebook filled with numbers and schemes, none of which ever seemed to pan out. "Mom, what's for dinner tonight? I'm pulling another double, and I won't have time to cook," I asked, hoping for once she'd taken care of something, anything. She didn't look up, just kept on scribbling. "Don't eat here, eat at work. And you should get Lily a job there too. We could use the extra money." Her words hit me like a slap. "Are you serious? She's only 14, Mom. And my job is to make sure she doesn't have to work, that she gets to be a kid as long as she can." Mom shrugged, still not looking at me. "Needs must, Ella. We're drowning here." That evening, after my shift, I spotted Mom outside a flashy new casino downtown. She was arguing with a bouncer, her face flushed and angry as she was escorted out. "Mom," I called out, running over. "What are you doing?" She rounded on me, her eyes wild. "I was so close, Ella. I have a system, downloaded it off the net. It's foolproof, Ella. I just need to tweak it a bit, and then we'll be rolling in it. You think you're gonna win big, but it's all a scam. It's designed to make you lose, Mom. The house always wins, not us." She scoffed, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Oh, and you know better? Working at a diner is gonna save us? At least it's real money, Mom. It's honest work, not this fantasy you're chasing. You're addicted." Mom's face hardened. "I'm not addicted. I'm trying to fix our lives. You'll see. Tomorrow, I'll prove it." With that, she stormed off, leaving me standing alone on the street. I walked home slowly, each step heavier than the last. I had to accept it, Mom wasn't going to change. It was up to me to keep Lily safe and try to scrape together some semblance of a future. But as I unlocked our front door to the sight of bills and final notices stacked up, I couldn't help but feel we were one losing hand away from losing everything. With Lily's birthday coming up, I threw myself into extra shifts at the diner. She had been upset lately, feeling left out because her clothes weren't as nice as her classmates. I wanted to buy her something special, something beautiful that would make her feel confident and happy on her day. I had a little box, a plain, old shoebox, where I stashed away every extra dollar I could spare. I hid it well under my bed, buried beneath winter clothes and old notebooks. It was supposed to be a surprise, a good surprise, not like the ones Mom kept springing on us. 2 days before Lily's birthday, while I was at work, I got a frantic text from her. It just read, "Come home now, it's Mom." My stomach dropped. I swapped shifts with a friend and rushed home, my mind racing with what could have gone wrong this time. I arrived to shouting. The front door was open, and I could hear Mom's voice booming from inside my room. As I stepped in, the scene before me was chaos. Clothes and papers were strewn everywhere, and there was Mom, holding the shoebox, her face twisted in anger. "You selfish little rat," Mom was screaming as I walked in. "Stealing from your own family, hoarding money like it's all yours." "What? No, Mom, let me explain," I tried, but she cut me off. "Explain? Explain how you hide money while we're drowning in debt. You think you're better than me? That you can just do whatever you want? That money was for Lily, for her birthday." I shouted back, trying to make her understand, but it was like talking to a storm. Lily was crying by the doorway, her small frame shaking. "Mom, please, Ella was doing it for me, for my birthday." Mom turned on her, eyes blazing. "Oh, so you knew? Great. Both my daughters are conspiring against me. What a great family I have." "It's not like that, Mom. We just wanted..." Lily tried to speak, but Mom wasn't having any of it. "I can't trust either of you." Mom threw the box down, and the few bills fluttered to the floor. "Get out. If you're going to steal from me, then you can't stay here." So, we packed, tears and silence filling the space between us. We grabbed what we could, clothes, a few books, anything that felt necessary. As we stepped out, I looked back to see Mom drawing the curtains sharply, blocking us from view. Her final gesture of shutting us out. Lily clutched her small bag tightly, her eyes large and worried in the dim street light. "Ella, we should call Dad," she murmured, her voice a mixture of hope and fear. I hesitated, the old bitterness and Mom's harsh words about Dad abandoning us echoing in my head. But desperation clawed at my chest, and the reality was, we had nowhere else to go. "Okay," I said, finally, pulling out my battered phone, scrolling through contacts I hadn't touched in years. Finding his number felt like unearthing a relic from another life. My thumb hovered over the call button, a lifeline so desperately needed, yet so heavy with past grievances. I pressed call, before I could change my mind. The line clicked, and then his voice, warm and unfamiliar, filled my ear. "Hello? Dad, it's Ella, and Lily. We need help," I blurted out, the words tumbling in a rush. "Mom, she kicked us out. We have nowhere to go." There was a pause, heavy and thick. Then, softly but firmly, he said, "I'm sending you money for train tickets right now. Come to me. We'll figure this out together." True to his word, the money came through minutes later. We booked tickets for the next train to where Dad lived, a city that felt worlds away from our troubles, but in reality, was just a few hours by rail. The train ride was quiet, both of us lost in our thoughts. Upon arriving, the sight of Dad waiting at the station, his face lined with concern, was almost too much. He looked the same, yet so different. Beside him stood his new wife, Claire, her smile warm but cautious. "Dad," I managed, my voice thick as he pulled us into a tight hug. "Let's get you girls home," he said, leading us to his car. At the house, a modest but welcoming place, we sat down in the living room, the air filled with the scent of freshly brewed coffee. Dad's wife excused herself, leaving us to talk. It was then, in the soft light of the living room, that we poured out everything, the fights, the schemes, the eviction. Dad listened, his expression growing darker with each word. When we finished, he was silent for a long moment. Then he reached out, taking both my hands in his. "I didn't know," he said quietly, his voice heavy with guilt. I've been sending money for alimony and your education every month. I had no idea that you were going through all this. Lily and I exchanged glances, the pieces clicking into place, the missing money, the lies. It was too much to take in all at once. I'm sorry, Dad continued, his eyes moist. I should have seen through it. I should have been there. It's not your fault, Dad, I said, feeling the weight lift slightly with each word spoken. We're here now. That's what matters. Dad nodded, squeezing my hands. You're right. And I'll make it right. Ella, we'll get you enrolled in college. And Lily, there's a great school just a few blocks from here. You'll like it, I promise. The relief was palpable, both of us letting out breaths we hadn't realized we'd been holding. Lily leaned forward, wrapping her arms around Dad in a fierce hug. I joined in, and for a moment, the world didn't seem so cold and harsh. The next morning, gathered around the breakfast table in Dad's kitchen, the sunlight spilled over like a promise. Claire, who I learned was a lawyer, brewed coffee while chatting about the local school system, her voice smooth and reassuring. So, you girls will be needing some guidance, Claire began, pouring herself a cup. Your father's told me everything, and I want you to know I'm here to help, legally, personally, whatever you need. Lily, munching on her toast, looked up with a hopeful glance. Does that mean you can stop Mom from? Her voice trailed off, but the question hung in the air, heavy and fraught with past pains. Claire set down her coffee, her expression serious yet kind. Yes, Lily. I'm going to make sure she can't pull you back into that mess. We're filing for full custody and ensuring the alimony will no longer fall into unreliable hands. The conversation shifted to lighter topics, plans for the school year, and my college prep. I had started reading again, dusting off old textbooks and filling my head with knowledge that had nothing to do with survival. It felt strange, yet exhilarating. Lily got enrolled in a nearby school and, with Claire's help, started in fresh, new clothes that made her beam with confidence each morning she set off. 3 months after our world turned upside down, while I was deep in a study session, my phone rang. Seeing Mom's number flash on the screen churned my stomach. Ella? Mom's voice was shrill, frantic. They took her from me, Ella. They say I can't be Lily's mother anymore. And they want the alimony back, the money they claim I stole. Her words, once capable of manipulating my emotions, now fell flat, filtered through the clarity of distance and truth. Mom, you did take that money. Money that was meant for us, for our future. You used us. Mom's voice turned harsh, venomous. Ungrateful girl. You come back here and work, pay off these debts. It's the least you owe me. I felt the old pull, the trained instinct to soothe, to placate. But I wasn't that person anymore. No, Mom. I don't owe you anything. Dad's been paying you for years, and you lied to us, to everyone. I'm done. I hung up before she could respond, before I could hear the sobbing or the anger that might pull me back in. Turning off my phone, I sat for a moment in the quiet of Dad's study, the weight of the call sinking in. I'd stood up for myself, for Lily. It was a new feeling, scary but empowering. Then I turned back to my books, the pages less daunting now. I was building something new, something mine. The past would always be a part of me, but it would not define my future, not anymore. As Dad had promised, he supported me through college, covering tuition so I could focus on my studies without the crushing weight of debt. Yet, despite the financial safety net he provided, old habits die hard. I couldn't shake off the need to support myself. I picked up a part-time job at a local cafe, balancing work with my courses. It felt good, earning my keep, keeping busy. Claire, Dad's wife, turned out to be more than just a steely lawyer. She became the family anchor we didn't know we were missing. For Lily, she was there at every school event, clapping louder than anyone. For me, she showed up at my college, attending every significant ceremony. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, I couldn't help but express my gratitude. Claire, I don't know how to thank you. You've been there for every parent-teacher meeting, every recital. It means the world to us. Claire smiled, passing me the salad. It's no big deal, Ella. You girls are my family now. I'm just doing what any parent would do. The years rolled on, each semester a new challenge, but also a new opportunity to prove how far I'd come. By my final year, I'd managed to earn a scholarship, covering my tuition fully. Yet, I kept the job at the cafe. Not just for the money, but for the sense of normalcy it gave me. One morning, while wiping down tables before opening, my boss, Jerry, a gruff man who'd run the cafe for decades, nodded approvingly at me. You're one of the good ones, Ella. Always pushing, always striving. Proud to have you here. Thanks, Jerry. It's been good for me, you know? Keeps me grounded. Graduation day arrived quicker than I had anticipated. As I stood there, cap and gown fluttering slightly in the spring breeze, I saw them, Dad, Claire, and Lily, their faces alight with pride and joy. Walking across that stage, I wasn't just receiving a diploma, I was stepping into a new chapter, one I had written for myself against odds that once seemed insurmountable. With a degree in hand and a job lined up, I moved into a small apartment in the city. It was modest, but mine. Claire helped me move in, fussing over the placement of furniture and decorations. This is a fresh start, Ella. Make it yours, she advised as we arranged the last of the books on a new shelf. I plan to, Claire. Really make it something special. Life settled into a new rhythm after college, with my days filled with the constant motion of working at a courier company. The job was demanding but rewarding, and I appreciated the stability and decent paycheck it offered. One afternoon, as I was finishing up my rounds, my phone rang. The familiar number that flashed on the screen made my heart sink. Mom. Taking a deep breath, I answered, bracing myself for what was coming. Ella, I need your help. Mom's voice was urgent, tinged with desperation. What's going on? I asked, though part of me already guessed the answer. I've lost the house, Ella. The bank took it because I couldn't keep up with the payments. I'm on the streets now, she confessed, her voice breaking. The news hit hard, even though part of me had been waiting for the other shoe to drop for years. Mom, I'm sorry to hear that, but I just need some money to get back on my feet, to cover my debts. You can help me, can't you? Her voice was pleading now, the familiar cadence of manipulation threading through her words. I paused, the weight of our past and her choices pressing down on me. Mom, I can help you get treatment for your gambling. That's what you need, not more money to chase your losses. Her response was immediate and visceral, laced with anger. You ungrateful brat. After all I've done for you, you'd let your own mother live on the streets? Mom, that's not fair, and you know it. I'm offering real help. Please, take it. My voice was firm, the years of being manipulated hardening me to her guilt trips. She cursed, venom pouring through the line, every word sharper than the last. I held the phone away from my ear, her fury a stark reminder of why we'd drifted so far apart. Finally, I spoke, my own voice calm but resolute. I'm sorry you feel that way, Mom. I hope one day you'll get the help you need. With that, I hung up and did something I should have done years ago. I blocked her number. The rest of the day passed in a blur. By the time I met up with Lily at our usual coffee spot, my thoughts were a tangled mess. Lily noticed immediately. Hey, what's wrong? Her concern was evident as she reached across the table, covering my hand with hers. It's Mom, I began, and poured out the entire conversation, her demands, her fury, and my decision to finally cut ties. Lily was quiet for a long moment after I finished, her expression thoughtful. Then, she squeezed my hand gently. You did the right thing, Ella. It's hard, but it's right. She's not the person we once loved. She's made her choices. I nodded, feeling the truth of her words. It hurts, Lil. It feels like I'm abandoning her, but I know she's abandoned herself a long time ago. Sometimes, the hardest decisions are the ones that save us, Lily said softly, wisdom beyond her years in her eyes. You're choosing not to drown with her. We have our own lives to live. Her words settled something deep within me. I was tired of the cycle of hope and disappointment that came with every call from Mom. It was time to break free, to truly start anew. As we left the coffee shop, the evening air felt fresher, lighter, as if an affirmation of my decision. I knew the road wouldn't always be smooth, but I was ready to face it head-on, to build, dream, and believe in the best of what was yet to come.
Alright, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked. We could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children. With zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job. Having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. president of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike, what have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.